Hi and welcome to the allotment. Today we're going to be harvesting rhubarb. I'm looking in this area at the moment at the stalks and they seem a little bit green, and over there they look a lot nicer, much more pink and red. So let's go into that area. I'm looking for the smaller stalks, preferably redder. They're usually sweeter and more tender than the big thick branches, which will give feed back to the plant so that it can keep growing. So we'll just select a few of these. I have a tendency to overpick rhubarb, as I do on many crops, and then I can't process it and become overwhelmed by the amount. So I need to be careful that I don't pick too much. Do make sure you pull it and don't cut it though, because cutting the leaves leaves a wound for disease to enter, and we don't want that. We want a nice healthy plant. So you'll notice at the end of each of these stalks as I pull it, there is a bit that would have been attached within the plant. Here we have a flower spike. It's taking energy off the plant, so I'm going to snap it or cut it off. Today I'm going to snap it. A bit lazy, never mind. Usually it's an indication that you can divide the plant if you want to get 2 plants. But I don't need any more plants, so I'm just removing the flower to compost later. I'll pop that down there. Here I've got another rhubarb plant and it overcrowds the area. Move it, so I used a chicken wire collar held up by stakes to contain it. Harvests always seem tiny at the allotment or in the boot of the car. I've learned that they seem to grow when they get to the kitchen. So today we're going to make rhubarb crumble or cobbler, sort of a combination of both really. So I've removed the leaves of the rhubarb. You mustn't eat these, you must turn them into something like compost or get rid of them. As you can see, I cut the lengths of rhubarb to fit in my bowl, and I've just given them a general wash in water, and now I'm starting to drain them. Just need to get the general water off them. It's not about making them dry or anything, just enough that we don't make a mess of our chopping board. Okay, so now I'm going to chop it up to go in our crumble/cobbler. I like small lengths. You can obviously chop these to whatever size you like. Some people like big chunks, other people like to put the whole lengths in. I like mine in small chunks, so that's what I'm going to do. I love the beauty of the pink colours here. It's amazing how deep pink they actually are. You'll also notice that how crispy and fibrous the rhubarb actually is. Don't worry about this. When you cook it, it'll soon break down. I do find in cutting this up that I prefer to use the serrated knife. I find it easier to cut with. I find that it avoids the strings of the rhubarb that I get when I cut it with a normal knife. Obviously it depends on your knives, you do you. I do prefer a serrated edge. And there we go, it's starting to get a nice little pile in the bowl there. Now, depending on your confidence with a knife, you might like to do what I'm doing here and cut single stalks so that you know exactly what you're doing and where your hand is. But if, like me, you're starting to get a little bit bored with cutting single stalks, you might like to group a few on the cutting board and get them all cut up together. So I just need to really concentrate now and make sure I'm not doing anything silly with the knife. Rhubarb has a strong tart taste, so we are going to need some sugar in this recipe to combat that. But that can be used in the levels to your taste. Some people need it sweeter than others, and it will also depend on the variety of rhubarb you're using and how sweet that actual stalk is. Hence I picked some of the rather pinker stalks. Right, let's get the rest of this into the bowl. I do like the beauty of these. I find them very jewel-like. It always makes me happy to see rhubarb at the beginning of the season. Lovely. Here I'm sprinkling sugar on. I think they look like sugared sweets now. I need to add enough sugar just to coat it, and I tend to do it in a couple of goes so I don't add too much. Don't have many measurements for this recipe. It's all about eyeballing it and getting it to how you like the flavour. So once they're fully coated, I'm pouring them into an oven-proof dish. Mine happens to be clear, so we'll be able to see later the filling. And then I'm going to press it down so that it all fits in, because as I was talking about earlier, the harvest seems to grow in the kitchen, and we've about filled this oven-proof dish to the top. So there we go. Bit of a press and smooth. Now we need to work on our topping. So whether you want to call it a crumble or whether you want to call it a cobbler or a crumble, it's up to you. So again, we're using the bucket cooking method here, i.e. no measuring. So I'm putting sugar, flour and oats. I would estimate about a quarter of a size of our baking dish, those sorts of amounts, and a piece of margarine or butter that would sort of fit in the palm of your hand. And that should be a good starting point. You can always alter it a bit later, and it's a very forgiving recipe. So I'm going to rub in the margarine now, which is basically just trying to pass all of the dry ingredients past the fat ingredient to get that sort of breadcrumby texture that everybody always seems to talk about. Doesn't have to be perfect, just enough to get it all combined together so that everybody gets a bit. No big lumps of marge. It can take a little bit of time, and you could use both hands if one of your hands wasn't holding a camera. The other tip I'd probably say is try and use your fingertips and not the whole of your hand, so then you've only got a small part to clean. Okay, so here we are putting in some milk of your choice. I happen to be using soy milk. So a good glop to start, real technical there, also probably called a splash, and get that mixed in. So what we're looking for is this sort of mixture that's all held together. It's slightly sticky, but not so sticky that it stays on your hands too much. And I'm just crumbling it over the top so that it will cover all of the rhubarb. Using it all up so that I don't waste any, and trying to break up large lumps. And it looks a bit like this when you're done. If we look at the side, we can see the layer of rhubarb and the topping. Now it needs to go into the oven. I tend to put it on about 180 degrees C, and the cooking time will be approximately 30 to 40 minutes, but that's up to you. I'm just checking it here, and it's not quite done. I'd like the rhubarb cooked down just a little bit longer and a bit browner on top, so that we get to this result. Now this looks delicious. Nice and golden on the top, all the rhubarb soft with some nice liquid in there as well. And I can tell you it was delicious. We like to serve ours with custard, and it got 10 portions out of it, which I think's pretty good. Thanks for watching. Bye!